hi everyone. If you can hear us, you can just quickly give us a hi on the chat as well. Welcome to this final panel discussion. Yeah, just say hi on the chat and let's see whether you can hear us, you can see us. If you cannot see us, then we know what to do. But yes, welcome everyone. We are now about to discuss the final panel discussion, which is on the future of work, the gig economy, how businesses can incorporate remote working in their operations to allow flexibility and improve productivity. Yes, so we are talking about the future. How does the future of work look like? And to help us discuss this, we have our panelist, Dr. Blank, who is the head or delegate of the Delegation of German Industry and Commerce in Ghana. We have Mr. Ato Olsen. Just for us to also test our mics, when I'm mentioning your name, you can just say hi so we know we can hear you. So Michael?
Yes, I can hear you.
Nice. All right, and then Mr. Ato Olsen Apia, founder of Ghana Think Foundation, you can say hi.
Hello everyone, hi.
Nice. And then we have Mr. Emmanuel Mumuni, who is also the coordinator for the Tech Entrepreneurship Initiative, Make IT in Africa, the Make IT Desk in Accra. Emmanuel, you can switch on your video and then you say hi, so everybody can hear you.
Samuel, I'm having technical issues with my camera, but I'm assuring you that I'm having high energy here and saying hi to everyone. I'm figuring that out soon. Thank you.
No worries, no worries. We love your high energy. That's good. And then last but not the least, we have Miss Kimberly Ofori, who is a founder, scale-up consultant, a coach, and mentor for FirmStart. Kimberly, you can say hi as well.
Hello, everyone.
Nice. All right. So if you just join us today, we are basically discussing the future of work. And for most of you, we are always wondering what is going to happen now that we are in the middle of a pandemic and things are going ways that we probably don't even have any idea of. I'll start with you, Dr. Blank. From your experience and discussion in Ghana, what is the likely impact that the pandemic will have on their businesses, these German companies as well?
Well, thank you very much, Sammy. We are talking about the future of work. So therefore, let's assume just for a second, we are in the summer of the year 2025. We are looking back at July 2020, at the peak of the Corona crisis, and we ask, what is our take on the crisis and its impact 5 years later? Let's assume by then I was the general manager of a German Ghanaian company in the food processing industry. Let's say we were producing jelly beans, candies, and chocolate bars. Back then, in the year 2020, we targeted the Ghanaian and the European markets. And let's say we were quite successful, particularly in Germany. You know, Germans like candy bars. Some of our ingredients that we used to produce our products, like, let's say, starch, refined sugar, and even some of the packaging materials we used, we had imported from Asia. That is quite normal back then in 2020, and most of our products came from Asia back then. But now came Corona, and the pandemic hit our business very hard. Actually, not only our business, but everybody's business very hard. My company all of a sudden was facing incredibly challenges and financial constraints. For instance, the reduction in demand came totally unexpected, both from Ghana and from overseas. Secondly, our supply chain was totally interrupted, at least for a few weeks, because our suppliers in Asia, they couldn't deliver. And last but not least, all the passenger planes to Europe, which we used for our products to transport to Europe, they didn't fly. And only cargo planes came in, and they were much more expensive than the regular flights. So after all, the situation for my company was really, really critical 5 years ago. But I had a very good team. And together, we decided to turn the challenges into an opportunity. And we also decided to introduce a few very bold measures. Bold measures meaning we had, of course, to cut our costs in the situation. So what did we do? We streamlined our business and our distribution channels. We shifted most of our activities on online platforms, which we hadn't done so before. And we started to focus on nearby markets in the ECOWAS region instead of Europe only. We also had to cut our workforce by 50%. And the remaining colleagues had to totally restructure their work. At the same time, we are hiring IT experts and some social marketing managers because we realized that is the new way to do it. And last but not least, we had to introduce the home office solution for most of our staff. That was actually a little bit tricky, particularly for those who were in the production line, because you can't produce chocolate bars from home, obviously. But at the same time, the home office solution proved to be very, very efficient in efficient way of working for most of our admin, research, and sales representatives. You could do their work easily from home. So we practiced home office back then for more than 6 months. And then decided we never went back to full-scale office. We even decided that we should scale down our expensive office space and move into much smaller premises somewhere else, where the costs could be cut considerably. So after all these measures, today, in 2025, I have to say, Corona was a blessing in disguise. Today, my jelly beans, my candy and chocolate bar business is stronger than ever. The changes that we had done 5 years ago had a lasting impact on our entire business because we came out leaner, more digital. We intensified our network and cooperation with local and regional distributors. And last but not least, we were more sensitized for better hygienic conditions at our workplaces and for the overall well-being of our workforce, which, by the way, today has reached a much higher number than we had before we had to undergo the very painful layoffs 5 years ago. So after all, the impact Corona had on our business 5 years ago was much more positive than we could have thought of. And as in the morning when Dr. Ezi Ansah gave her keynote speech, Corona opened the door for many more job opportunities for a young, motivated, and dedicated workforce that is open for change and that embraces digitalization. So therefore, my take on the future work is, after Corona, take it as an opportunity. Corona is bad right now, but Corona also brings more opportunities than threats to all of us, and particularly for the young generation, which is now listening and might wonder, what does it have an impact on me? It might have a better and much more positive impact. And maybe in 5 years from now, in 2025, we sit together and we discuss it.
This is like really, really good insights. And from what I hear, Corona probably is not just, it's not as bad as everybody says, but we can see certain opportunities in this. Now, picking up from where you mentioned remote working and home office and office, I'm sure people are already thinking about this. Businesses are actually doing this now. So maybe I'll come to you, Ato. You know, before at something in the distant future, and I like the way Dr. Blanco also to the narrative of 2025. We imagine we are in 2025, but really, like, it is here now. We are in 2020. People are doing home office. People are doing remote working, you know, and has become the new normal. Can you tell people who are listening to us now what skills they need to probably have and I mean acquire now to be competitive, in either the job market or even in general as well?
Thank you, Samuel. I really love what Dr. Blank said especially about dedicated workforce for now. So for us at the Ghana Think Foundation, we have been working virtually for years because we work with a lot of localized and distributed teams. We have teams all over the country that work together on the different things that we do for Ghana Think. So I think some of the things that have been really important and are really important for this period, first is the ability to learn, to be able to learn new things. If you're a quick learner, as things change and, as situations change, you'll be able to pick up and become very useful. So, the idea of being able to learn, unlearn, and relearn is very important. So I encourage people to check that out. And And then the other thing is collaborative and productivity software. So being able to use things like Google Apps, so Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides, Google Forms is extremely important. So if you don't really, if you're not really familiar with that, you have to get familiar with that very quickly. Being able to edit documents with others, adding comments, discussing and working in real time is very important during this period. There are other tools like Microsoft Teams for meetings, also for collaboration. Apart from the Google App Suite, a lot of startups within the country also use Slack. So that's another software that people should also learn how to use as well. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was meetings. So a lot of organizations, tend to have a lot of meetings, some have more meetings than others. But during this period, companies have had to make more use of meetings, right? So, if companies used to meet for like 4 hours to discuss something, people don't have that kind of 4 hours now when they're on a Zoom call, because there's data issues and etc. So I think people have become better at how they leverage meetings for work. So that means that, when you're part of a meeting, you have to be able to contribute, quickly, to be able to help people come to a decision and to be able to do more work on the meeting, right? So be able to resolve things on the meeting very quickly. So I think that's another thing that has become very important. So people have to be able to tech savvy to join the meetings well, to be able to, communicate, present, share screens, have chats, what are you talking about? What are you chatting about? So I think that's something that people also need to learn how to do. And I mean, the good thing is that, especially for us, for Ghana Think, we see a lot of events and forward-thinking events that, young people always participate in. And we've seen a lot of these events become virtual. I mean, today we're having a virtual career fair. So I think it's important for young people to join more of these virtual calls, and also follow the best practices of what people are doing on these virtual calls so that they can also become better, especially when they have to organize some of these as part of work, right? Yeah, so I also wanted to touch a bit on running lean. So, I mean, for us, because we've worked a lot with localized and distributed teams, we run lean a lot. And I think that's something that a lot of companies are also doing within this period, right? So how can you get a lot done without spending so much money, without spending so much effort? So I think that's something that a lot of people have to learn to do. And so I mean, more opportunities for young people to be able to participate in some of these things. But for me, the ability to learn is the most important, and also following best practice, because sometimes, even when people sometimes send me Word documents for me to edit for them, or help them with something, I'll intentionally put it on Google Docs and then help them edit it on Google Docs, right? So that they can get used to that. And I think we have to do more of that with people that we work with, and youth have to embrace that a lot more as well. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Atul. That's very insightful. And if you're listening as of work, keep bringing the chats in. I mean, bringing your questions as well. We'll be happy to respond to them. And I like, Atul, that you speak about these, as you know, you didn't talk about building AI, building bots and all those things, because sometimes when people talk about the future, you know, you start to think about all these things, but you touch on things like MS Teams, Google Forms, Slack, these collaborative tools. And I like that you said people need to know, learn, you know, learning, relearning, and as well, you know, learning about things. So thank you so much. I'll come to you quickly, Emmanuel. Emmanuel, in your line of work, you come across many entrepreneurs. Now, in talking about the future of work, what are some of the programs, out there, especially for in your case as well, that you think are there to provide the right support for young entrepreneurs, young innovative entrepreneurs in Ghana and also Africa at large?
So thank you so much, Samuel. I think the whole idea of gig economy and the future of work has become like a buzzword, and we make it look like working as a gig worker is new in Africa. It's not new. It has been happening for so many years. I think what has changed is the fact that it's become more formalized, and there's some infusion of digital components to it, which makes everything easier. But there's also some level of creativity that is also included in the whole mix to make sure that it's easy for both sides. That's the demand and supply side. But I think it's working so far because two sides of the coin are benefiting from it. So from the perspective of workers, it's more flexible for them. They can build their own corporate ladder. They have that flexibility to even deal with their families, and it's on the side of the work, the companies, something that is flexible for them and less costly at the end of the day. So we at Make IT, I think it's something that we welcome. We are more focused on promoting digital solutions, and we don't do that in isolation of what is happening in the ecosystem. We rather try to integrate everything, and we see that growth in Ghana, where people are embracing this kind of work. And Ghana has a reputation of really welcoming innovative tools like this. So if you look at a tool like WhatsApp, Ghana is known to be like the fastest country to have embraced it and used it at scale. And so we are happy to be in this ecosystem because we know it's easy for us to sell the idea of technology to whoever needs it. And in our specific case, we are trying to push a lot of platforms that are advancing this kind of idea. And there are a lot of platforms already in Ghana that host gig workers on it, and also get corporates to come and hire the services of these gig workers. And I think from our perspective, it's really about how do we grow these platforms to a level where they are sustained enough to provide value to both sides of the value chain. And we've seen a very fast growth in these platforms, and they are mostly in the field of computer and technology, information technology, also in media communications as well, and finally in transportation and dispatch sectors. So these are the three areas that we are focusing our attention on, trying to see how we build these individual ecosystems to a level where they don't need our support anymore. And we are engaged with a few of these platforms already, providing them with investor readiness trainings. So what you realize in the startup world is that you need money to run your companies, and usually you tend to either angel investors or venture capitalists to get funding for these. And we are making it possible for them to get funding through this. We are running investor tours where we bring in European investors to Ghana to engage with the ecosystem and go ahead to invest in local startups. And the idea would be to not only get these European investors to invest in Ghana, but also to trigger a more active local investor ecosystem. So there's a lot of money in Ghana, believe it or not, but people do not find the startup world as a viable area to put their money. So what we are trying to do is to change the focus of local investors to start putting their money in this. And a lot of these gig economy platforms are the platforms that we are pushing to the investors to invest in. and we are definitely seeing revenue increase in these startups. And the next step would be for us to train more people to go on these platforms, because they are telling us that we don't have specific skill sets on the platform at the moment. So our support area would be, how do we invest in training more young Ghanaians to then go on these platforms as service providers and as gig workers. And so we are actively doing this. And another thing we're doing is to provide them with more skills. So a lot of the entrepreneurs that you find in the startup world in Ghana are very tech savvy. They know what they are doing. They can build a product or service. But beyond that point, they lack the sense of business. So how do I take my business to market? How do I even make good money out of it and get investors interested? So we're trying to build their skills on leadership, on business, to be able to run their businesses. And if you take statistics from like 4 years ago, startups that were active, more than 80% of them are not active at the moment. And this is our focus, that we need to sustain these businesses over time. And the wave that is coming with this future of work, we want all these platforms to sustain over a long period of time, that 2-3 years from now, we can say that, hey, this platform started in 2019 and they are now one of the biggest platforms in West Africa. And I think this is one way that we can drive the whole idea of the future of work in Ghana as a local case.
I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, we definitely need to help improve the percentage of startups that fail in Ghana. Yeah.
Maybe let me ask you a question, Emmanuel, regarding failing in Ghana. You know Ghanaians better than I do. Is failing accepted in the culture here in Ghana, or is it supposed to be a bad thing? Because I wonder, in Germany, it is definitely not good if you fail. In America, it's just the opposite. You have to fail in order to become, a good entrepreneur. What about the general approach here in Ghana about failing?
Yes, so I think it's definitely something that a lot of people misunderstand, because people that fail the first time feel that, this is not meant for me. In the US, it's kind of like a requirement to actually succeed in the startup world. And I think a lot of people are now warming up to that idea, because I know a lot of startups or entrepreneurs in Ghana who have failed like 3 or 4 different startups and they keep going.
Yeah.
But I think there has to be that that distinction between failing the right way and being a perpetual failure. Because if you are always failing in startups, then we are now wondering, when are you going to make it? So it's not like we are accepting it, but there has to be that point that is made, that when you fail, it's an opportunity for you to learn. And so you shouldn't make it something that it's normal or it's okay, but it's something that you should understand that, hey, I failed and it's a good thing that I failed, and understand it. But how do I build on this experience to make my possibility of success in my next venture more possible in terms of like succeeding? So I think culturally, when you fail, it's almost like a stigma.
Yeah.
And so this is why a lot of people do not even get into business, because a lot of people have comfortable jobs and they have even bigger ideas that they could go out and run. But they are like, if I go out and I run this and I fail, then I become like something that everyone is calling me a fool for, because I had a job. So there has to be that safety net, as even policymakers or people at the higher level to make sure that even if we get into risk areas, we don't become lifelong failures if we make those bold decisions.
Maybe ask Kimberly, who hasn't talked yet. Maybe you can give us your take on the future work and what you think young entrepreneurs, young students, young people should be prepared for in order to stand firm.
Right. So I think the scenario that you sketched, Dr. Blank, is so important about the future of where we are going to be in terms of demographics, but also how we are approaching work. Ato and Emmanuel already touched upon certain things that we can use to make it easier. So automation is a big part of this, but also looking at structural changes in organizations. So looking at how do we approach strategy? How are we going to look at future forecasting? So one of the things that I think in this day and age, and especially during Corona, startup founders have an advantage in and on is that the audiences are no longer, that the audience is broad. And what I mean with this is that you're competing now, you can compete now online with bigger brands. And so if you're looking to come into the video conferencing business, even though Zoom has taken a very dominant position right now, there are now other platforms that are leveraging people's newly developed skills to use online platforms for conferencing to actually build platforms that are specific to certain niches. And so what is happening now is that we are finding that the market has been re-educated on certain things. Skills have been developed. People are being onboarded at their workplaces on how to use social platforms, how to use online platforms. And now this is an opportunity for other startups to come in and offer any solutions in any or on any gaps that you may see in those products. Because Zoom is, in as much as we love using it now, also comes with its faults. It doesn't have certain functionalities that a lot of other partners might have. And the future of events, for instance, is obviously going to be in, added functionality, making it simulating personal experiences and simulating experiences really. And so just to say that there are so many opportunities in building upon what has been done in the market already by an already established company. The second thing would be, how are we onboarding our employees? And so already touched upon, okay, we have all of these tools. And so if we're going to say everybody's going to use Google Docs, why are we choosing that? And also, how are we going to efficiently make so that everybody is using it to reduce time and to make sure that we are working more effectively? And some of the things that we've seen now is, especially when we're talking about how are we hosting meetings, how are we gathering data, I think there should be an increase in frequency, but that in a sense that would mean that the productivity goes up because we are only meeting and using the time for what is necessary. So what we are finding now is that a lot of companies are now having strategy meetings that are set for 30 minutes and that's it. But you have already done all the preparation at home. You've had the tools set up. You've had everything that you could read into. And so now we're actually using these meetings digitally, virtually, to just make decisions. And I think that this is a very important shift from the way that the corporate world has done things. And so we are now actually moving away from hierarchy in a way that it's transparency that is making organizations grow now. So now that the back-end developer understands what the CFO is talking about, because we're all collaborating on the same vision, the same goal, the strategy can be explained to anyone in the organization. So when we're talking about the future and growing companies, it's all about collaborating, it's all about being more transparent, and it's all about tapping into the skills and the human capital that you already have. I love this example from Wuhan that I used in one of my articles that I wrote a few months ago, when at the peak of the pandemic, there was this retailer who had over 100 stores in Wuhan, which we know is the epicenter of where COVID was recognized. And they had to shut over 80% of their stores. And so all of these people who were working there, you could say the logical solution would be, well, we're going to fire them. We don't know how long it's going to take. We have to pay them. But what they did is they said, you know what, we are going to train each and every one of them to become digital and online influencers. And so they set them up on social accounts, on WeChat, they made their Instagram accounts, they taught them how to use the products, how to make tutorials. And they actually doubled their revenues over 200% versus what they did last year, solely by engaging with their audiences online. And because they were selling to them directly, they were in the spaces where they're already moving. And so instead of them saying we need to cut costs, they invested in their folks for a few weeks. And then they said, you know, now we're going to let you take responsibility and be part of our brand, be ambassadors, and also have that autonomy to do what we are and establish our brand. And so I think this is what the future holds for us. It's about tapping into the human capital that we have, the talent that we have, and positioning them in a way that is relevant to your market at the time.
Nice. All right. Thank you so much, Kim. And Kim, I just want to stay on you for a bit because you mentioned something I actually wanted, you to already talk about, which was you wrote an article. And then, the title of the article is Why You Should Work on Your COVID Strategy Today. And I see you're already touching on this. And in the article as well, you mentioned, or you recommend a few key steps for entrepreneurs to follow. Now, my question mainly is, how can entrepreneurs become and stay market leaders moving forward? You know, just building on the point of where you were going already.
Right. I think so. The first thing to do is look at what is your target audience doing? What happened to your market during the COVID peak of the pandemic? So if your target audience has changed their behaviors and your product is no longer relevant to them, don't try to push it to the market and do discounts. It doesn't work. What you're going to do is you're going to look at, okay, what are the changed behaviors? What are their new needs? What are the, what we're finding now is that in the medical sector, people are still requiring medical aid, but they can't go to the hospitals for whatever reason. And you're finding that these pharmacies are now doing their delivery services. They're developing applications so that you can order your drugs online. So are you staying relevant because you are still plugged into the need and the change of the market? That's the question that you need to ask yourself. Secondly, what is very important is to digitize your offering. And I already mentioned an example of that. So even if you have physical products, even if you have services, even if you are into consulting, these are services that you can still change into digital offerings and remain relevant. And so if you thought that your industry, of course, if you are into tourism and you have an airplane, it's pretty hard to kind of simulate that. However, if you are looking at other industries, most of us can find a way to reach our customers virtually. And so tap into that as early as possible. Do your market research, which is key. And I think the last one is probably the most low barrier one, is presenting an alternative to your already established brand or mark and product. And what I mean with that is you can create new business models. You do not have to just pivot or say that we're going to completely dissect and change, this product that we have. You can choose to bring up a new business model, redesign and adapt to what your market is needing and establish a new brand. And so don't be afraid in this time to invest into something that may be, this might way be your new flagship product if you don't take time. I think it's so important that you do your market research and find out where is this going. We are often at time based on doing things still in business based on assumptions when we have so much access to data. So we are not doing our research. We have data that is going to tell us what future behaviors could look like. You have customers most of the time, and you're not speaking to them, asking them what has changed for you and what do you think you'll be needing in the next 6 to 12 months. These are all questions that you can directly ask. As a founder, this is the opportunity to reach out to your core customers and find out. A lot of the times we become directors and now all of a sudden we're too superior to speak to the people who are actually bringing the money in, which I do not understand, because without these people, your business doesn't exist. So always be connected and plugged into the people who are making your business viable. And then you can adapt to that, either pivoting or choosing to develop an entirely new business model.
Thank you so much, Kim. And yeah, I think I was trying to go through the questions, I mean, the chats to see if there are any questions, but most of them are actually agreeing with what you're saying. So it means people are learning from you as well. Dr. Blank, I just wanted to come, I mean, to you quickly before we end. In general, you know, we see, I mean, what is happening in Ghana. And I'm just also thinking in general, like for businesses in Ghana, as you already mentioned, you work with German businesses operating in Ghana, but as well, there are also some German businesses already in Germany looking into investing in Ghana. How are there any difference between the way the future looks, you know, coming from a German perspective to Ghana as well?
Okay, very briefly, I think there's again more opportunity than challenge or threat, especially since I firmly believe in the fact that Ghanaian business will strongly focus on local distribution, local production or regional production. And that, of course, opens the door for lots of partnerships with German companies. Companies that are coming together with German technology, but also Ghanaian knowledge of the market, that might be a perfect fit, a very nice combination that at the end of the day will benefit both sides. And that's again, hopefully one of the positive outcomes of Corona, that this will lead to a stronger German-Ghanaian business partnership.
Thank you so much, Dr. Blanc. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. Thank you so much, Kimberly. Thank you so much, Ato. It has been a really nice conversation. And yeah, have a really nice day. And for everyone who joined us as well, we hope you learned a lot. And please, you can as well go into the exhibitor lounge to meet other businesses which are offering certain jobs. You can have interviews with them. But in general, thank you all for coming and have a nice day. Bye-bye.